Hello and welcome to It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. This is a podcast for business leaders and business owners just like you. We're going to be sharing top tips on how to develop yourself personally and professionally. I'm going to be sharing updated podcasts on a regular basis, so please do make sure you subscribe, and I really hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome to today's episode of It's Not So Lonely at the Top. I'm joined by Mr. Mark Shortland, who is the founder of Shoplight Limited. Mark, absolute pleasure.
Good to see you, Pete. Thank you for inviting me here.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. We had some technical issues on the first recording, so we're here a second time. My fault, not Mark's, so I'll take full responsibility. But Mark's been very helpful and kind in supporting the podcast, in coming back. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
And hopefully this one will go swimmingly. I'm just double checking my buttons to make sure we're definitely recording.
Yeah.
Because that would be a massive faux pas second time round, wouldn't it? So we're all set up and ready to go. Mark and I know each other quite well. So we're both lifelong Man United fans and season ticket holders. And we travel up regularly, mate, don't we?
Yeah.
And as we record this, we're a week away from the Europa Cup final.
Yeah, indeed. Exciting stuff. And let's just keep everything crossed that, we can make our way into the Champions League, mate, through the back door.
Yeah, I know. So, for those of you that aren't into football, I think it's like Premier League 15th and 16th or something, or is it 16th and 17th?
16th, 17th, yeah. The lowest ever final, the lowest teams ever ranked in their domestic leagues to play in the European final. So, another record, not one you'd want, but there you go.
And predictions? Let's see how this will age.
Oh, yeah, this is in fact it's being recorded, right? I mean, I think we're looking at extra time.
Okay.
I think United will do it. I mean, maybe 2-1 or something. That'd be close. Okay. But yeah, that's going to come back and haunt me, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think we're going to spank them.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm putting it down. I think we're going to spank them. I think we're going to hand it to them. I don't think the scoreline. I think it'll be like. I think it's going to be like the FA Cup final last season, where United beat City 2-1. So the scoreline didn't reflect a spanking. No, but we gave City a spanking.
We did. Great days.
So I think I'm saying it into the camera. United are going to spank Spurs.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go.
We've got the players. It's got to happen.
Well, we've certainly got the track record this season in that competition. So we'll see. And of course, Spurs have beaten us 3 times this season. Yeah. It would be just like Spurs to bottle it when it matters.
Exactly that.
Yeah, but we'll see.
I think, when it comes to big European nights, well, the personnel have changed, but obviously. I don't know. We've probably lost half the audience already with our football banter, but we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, I won't end up with egg on my face. Yeah. Mark, for the benefit of the listeners and the audience, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a bit about you and your background and Shoplight, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Shoplight's been around for 11 years this year, and I guess my story is one of generations gone by, in that I typically entered the lighting industry. Like many people, it wasn't something I dreamed of doing, but you end up in places, and hopefully they're the places you're meant to be, and loved it, and thoroughly enjoy what we do and how we do it. And I think I worked my way through businesses, understanding how they run, how the models work, and eventually 11 years ago felt that there was enough knowledge, contacts, networks, the whole thing, to be able to say we can do this and probably do it better than the companies occupying the space. So I know nowadays perhaps people tend to start businesses a bit quicker in their careers. Mine's a kind of traditionalist story in that sense, in that learn your trade and then have a go. And so the company works with retail chains. So we work with both UK and global brands, Lululemon, Lego, Skechers, a number of brands who we supply right across Europe. And we work to deliver the lighting solutions when they open a new store or they do a refit of an existing space.
Sure. Awesome. And so I find it fascinating that you've always focused on lighting in shops specifically. So one of the things that businesses, and I've never really asked you this question, so I'm kind of leading you down a path here, but I think I pick up it's one of your ethoses, and that is that Shoplight is very specific about what it does and what it doesn't do. Now, lighting, relatively speaking, could be quite generic, couldn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah, in that, we could talk about office lighting, home lighting, those kinds of things. Have you never been tempted to broaden your market and move away from shop lighting?
We have, and you're absolutely right. Almost all of our competitors try to occupy every space, every built environment, and illuminate, whether it's, like say, offices, healthcare, whatever. We specialise because we understand that retailers have a very specific set of requirements. They work at a pace unseen elsewhere in the construction industry, because shop fits tend to be 4, 5, 6 weeks, whereas frankly, if you're putting up a tower block in London, it could be 18 months, 2 years.
Okay.
And so they have a specific set of service requirements. But to answer your question, we've absolutely been tempted, and it was a few years ago now, but we had a go at moving into the kind of hotel lighting, sort of commercial type projects, and failed badly. And thankfully we failed fast, which is a good lesson to learn. But principally because we didn't know the market, we didn't understand the price points, we didn't understand what the hotel chains wanted, and so subsequently we weren't able to be successful. So for sure we've tried, but we've also learned from it, and I think particularly around COVID, the prediction was the death of the high street again after COVID, and a lot of our competitors decided to run away from retail, do anything but retail, and we stood still, and we did very well out of it in the end.
Yeah, okay. Amazing. And that leads me on to an interesting point, because you are very much committed to shops and shop lighting, and obviously the market trends are saying that online shopping's growing and those kinds of things, which I find fascinating, because from a business perspective, you can almost listen. Sometimes you can listen to what is classed as common sense or common opinion, but then the experience I have from recently spending a weekend in Manchester and recently spending weekends in Leeds and those kinds of places. Peterborough, where we live, obviously isn't the best from a high street perspective, but you go to Cambridge and the high streets are still bustling. Yeah. So, what do you think about that? What's your thought process when it comes to shopping the high street and people's behaviour? Yeah,
I mean, I think what retailers have learned is that actually there's no loyalty online, right? So people will simply click between sites or apps to determine the best price for the product they want. So unless you've got something that's really, really kind of exclusive and protected, then your margins are going to get battered. And you've seen that from ASOS and a number of other particularly fashion online-only retailers. So what they've learned is that it's not necessarily a nice word, but omnichannel is the way to success. And that is, when I started in retail lighting, brands would have 300 stores in the UK, but sometimes more if you go back to the Woolworths of this world. You can be successful in this country now with 100 stores. Okay. Because you can place them in areas where people can get there within 20 minutes, half an hour, but then you need a good online offer. Yeah. And probably the best example of this is Next. The way they use their stores as delivery hubs, return hubs, they even make the return process itself effortless. Yeah. So when you join the two up, you end up with a really compelling offer, and you maintain some sense of loyalty. Sure. And I guess the biggest example of that is how online brands are switching to physical retail. So if you look at Gymshark now, they're opening stores so that they can take their community to a physical space, but also to make sure they continue to develop that customer loyalty. Sure. So, interesting times. But I think, often predicted, but never really never really manifested itself is the death of the high street. Yeah. You still get great cities, great centres, great market towns, and those that aren't, for sure, location is key. But understanding that is the way to success currently, I think.
I think one of the things that I've picked up from a shopping experience perspective, and I don't know whether it's me as I've matured, I suppose, and shopping tastes have changed, but it feels like a lot of the shops are moving to a lot more of an experience around shopping, service-led. I went to Manchester to watch United the other day, and I like to travel up, and I sometimes get there a bit early, go to the Trafford Centre around the corner, just have a little walk through. And I went in Selfridges, and they're sort of dishing out, perfume testers, and it's all the experience and stuff like that. But it's interesting what you say. One of my favourite brands at the minute, I think you actually got me onto them, to be fair, and that's Represent. I absolutely love them, and I've shopped online with them. Excellent experience, excellent customer service. But then they've also gone into physical stores. There's the one in Manchester.
Yeah, indeed.
So
I mean, I was in London yesterday, and there's nothing better than walking up and down Regent Street when the sun's shining.
Sure.
But we just completed a global flagship store there for Lululemon on Regent Street, and it's an incredible space. I mean, the way that it represents their brand is astonishing in terms of the detail, the events, the flexibility in the space, the sheer scale of it is truly wonderful. And I don't think you can represent that online. I think that's why you need both access points for customers.
Absolutely. And like you say, I think the challenge is that particularly online, attention can be drawn elsewhere very quickly, can't
absolutely,
it? Very tricky. So when you said that you followed a traditional pathway where you worked in businesses that specialised in shop lighting and those kinds of things, did those businesses have lighting in other industries as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
But your role was always specifically in shop lighting?
Off and on, yeah. Okay. I mean, certainly the very first lighting company I worked for just did retail lighting. Then I went to a couple of global multinational manufacturers, one being Italian and the second being Swedish. Both of those operate in every physical built environment space. And in the first company, my role was broader than retail. The second one, it was just retail. I think what I learned quite early on was I love working in that. I love the buzz of it. I love the pace of it. And most importantly, I love being able to go and walk in and go, we played a small part in delivering this environment. And that could be, a small store in a market town where we've done a good job with a tight budget. That can be just as rewarding as a global flagship in the middle of London. So, I think that was the thing that probably that delivered the sort of buzz and attraction to me.
Sure. And just one more question to better understand the industry before I ask you some more questions specifically around your business. So from an industry perspective, how often, I'm aware that you deal with the likes of Skechers and Waterstones and some fantastic businesses, retail stores. How often do they tend to they tend to rejuvenate their shops every so often, and they might reorder, new lighting and those kinds of things? How often does that sort of facelift sort of process happen?
I mean, the average that people would talk about is 7 to 10 years.
Okay.
That said, I mean, we're working with a client now where we're relighting stores that have got the same light fittings in them that were there 30 years ago. Okay. So it really does depend where the store is and how they can, horrible phrase, but how they can sweat their asset, really. Sure. And there is a slightly perverse kind of mass to this in that the better the store, the more likely it is to get a refit sooner.
Sure.
Okay, so it's all about payback in essence. And of course, if you're in a sort of, secondary location, that payback can be extended and therefore you don't get the refit, but ironically it's the refit that would deliver an increase in sales. So, I mean, so there's some slightly kind of paradoxical views going on there, but 7 to 10 years, maybe a bit longer, maybe a bit shorter.
Okay, cool. And I suppose the interesting observation is the better a store looks, the better feel and experience it has. the better it's going to do, right?
That's exactly.
Is that like a proven thing? Is there studies
absolutely.
around that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we had a client last year that was going to do 4 major refits in their vast estate, and actually, as a trial, spent a fraction of the money on what they call a minor refit, so liquor paint, new signage, new lighting, new flooring.
Okay,
and found that the return or the sales uplift when they did those works was the same as a full major refit. Oh, right. So they took the sum they were going to spend on 4 stores and spread it across 50.
Okay.
So they got much more bang for their buck, really, across the estate. So, yeah, it depends on the brand, depends on what they're selling. You know, it's more of a legacy business or fashion and more edgy and fashionable. But so the rules always change, but yeah, absolutely.
It's fascinating business, to be fair. And a lot of people listening will have gone, it's like one of those industries where like, well, I'm aware that it's a thing, but I've never even really thought about it as a business, right? I suppose you hear that a lot.
You do, yeah. I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of retailers because I think they don't get an easy ride. It's possibly the most competitive market in Western civilization, retail. It is constantly getting battered by legislation, by endless governments promising to reform business rates, putting more and more burden on retailers at the low end of the pay scale, and yet they continue to innovate, they continue to push the boundaries of what they can do, employ many thousands of people across this country. And I don't think they get the credit they deserve. So, we're a tiny cog in their wheel, but I'm always proud that we can play a part in supporting these brands to achieve their goals. Yeah.
And, as a business person, I'm always fascinated by brand as well. So you're working with some fantastic brands where they have to, like you say, innovate and, it's all about that value proposition and building loyalty and, all of those things that are really relevant, best practice for any business. Yeah. We're really talking about some household names that are amazing at doing this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it must be really fascinating to be part of it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's also incredible what you can learn by being around these companies. I mean, you can only, look, Pete, we're a small business. We can only ever aspire to have the sort of brand power of Lululemon or Skechers or whatever it might be. But if you can take a little piece of that and have it rub off on your business, then why not?
Yeah, I'd love to start a fashion brand. I think that'd be amazing. Genuinely, I think that'd be amazing to start a fashion brand.
I mean, you could probably lose more money starting a fashion. Well, the only thing you'd lose more money on is buying a football club. But,
I don't know what's worse, football club or a fashion brand.
Yeah. It's not easy, but I like you. I mean, what an experience it'd be. Yeah. You got to understand though that your margins sometimes in retail are as low as 1%.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's fine lines.
Yeah. I think, I think it'd be a real challenge, certainly, for sure. Yeah. So, Shoplight, as a business, tell us a bit about the journey you've been on. So, 11 years you've been in business, from humble beginnings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to dealing with some of the major global retail brands. Yeah. So, tell us a bit about, how did that journey start? So, how have you evolved over time and grown? What's the journey been like?
So, I mean, it was always been founded on service because certainly our industry, from a product perspective, has been heavily commoditized. Okay. Even major lighting brands, move their product out to the Far East for manufacture. It drove the price down. So often there's, cigarette paper between one product and another. Sure. So what struck me was actually how you can make a difference, and more importantly, how your company can differentiate is through service. So and that's where I come back to understanding retailers and their needs being very specific and different to other types of construction. So it's having the right stock, it's having the right delivery methods, it's having the add-on services, whether it be lighting design or focusing or whatever. And so it was very much about founding the business on those principles, but it was equally, kind of kitchen table stuff, right? Sure. So started off, and this is the power of of relationships and the power of understanding and spending time in the industry was I was able to go back to some clients that are still with us today. I mean, our first ever order was from Skechers.
Amazing.
It was for £1,400.
Wow.
It was tiny, relatively speaking, but I'll never forget the leap of faith they took in a startup to deliver that particular lighting solution. So it was incredible to be able to call on those contacts that I'd learned in many cases were friends over the years, sure. And they were incredibly supportive in giving us a chance. So I think that really helped. Mm-hmm. But then it was about, what do we need to deliver this? And so we went through a fairly fast-paced journey around renting small amounts of physical space and going up through bigger offices and warehouses, etc., and then growing the team accordingly as the business grew from there. I think the first couple of years, looking back, were the most exciting ever because you're riding the wave, you've got the buzz, things are going well, you're seeing a fairly linear line in terms of growth, and then it stops. Sure. And that's really where you have to take a step back and go, why? Mm-hmm. What do we need to do to get back on the growth curve, as it were? Mm-hmm. Because and that's where you lean into brand, you lean into developing language, you lean into service, you lean into products. Mm-hmm. It goes from there. But certainly as I come through to more latter times, we took a decision 3 years ago to become an OEM, a manufacturer, because going back to that issue around commoditized product, and clearly with the emphasis on sustainability now globally, the product that's coming out of the Far East is often made from virgin aluminium, powder coated, which means it's very difficult to recycle, and so it's ended up in landfill. So we took the decision to start to 3D print our products using biopolymers, and working with an inventor who is an incredible guy and spent many years with Dyson, invented products for them. So we've now really gone full circle, and we're manufacturing now 60% of all of our products are made in-house in Peterborough, and we're hoping to increase that year on year. So I'm some learnings along the way. We'd be here for a week in terms of I knew nothing about manufacturing, and now I know just a touch more than nothing. Yeah. So,
Sometimes, one of the things that I've often got told is the business you start with isn't the one you end with.
Absolutely.
You've certainly very much gone from a supplier, a sort of middle person to a manufacturer, which is incredible.
But just on that, Pete, the really important lesson there is that, I say this to our team all the time. This isn't a process that you start and end. You must always be changing.
Evolve,
always evolving, because as soon as you stop, you are effectively dying as a business. And I keep reiterating that all the time. And I think some people in businesses think, why can't things stay the same for a while? Why can't we just do what we did last year or the last 5 years? And for me, that's the reason why. As soon as you stop evolving, you're effectively dying as a business. And I'm very conscious that it might be challenging to keep evolving, but if we don't, it's the end of the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the 3D printing in a moment. Just on the 11-year journey, tell me, have you grown every year? Has it grown every year, or has there been plateaus? Because success tends to not be linear, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it plateaued after year 2, went back to growth, and of course then COVID. Put the mockers on, stopped anybody growing, didn't it? I suppose, or most people. So that was a tough time, as it was for many businesses. I'm not trying to suggest that ours was worse than anyone else's, but really since COVID, it has been a process of growth, a little bit up and down on occasion, but in our industry, you have clients that make decisions around refit programs. So 2-3 years ago, we were successful in winning a European-wide refit program for Claire's accessories that, ended up accounting for 30% of our turnover that year. But you can only do that once, right? I mean, they're not going to do it again the next year. So then you've got to find other clients to help you navigate through that. So it's a little bit of a choppy water, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the main, it's been growth with some pauses, whether it be COVID or learning how you take the next step.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what was the first role you recruited for? What was the position that you first recruited for?
The first ever employee we had was a warehouse manager, simply because for many months I would deal with customers, raise the quotes, do the invoicing, pack the goods, unload the lorry, load the lorry, and look, they're incredible times. I'd never complain, and I think having the experience of pretty much every job in the business really helps when you have to grow a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the idea of a warehouse manager is simply that somebody can be there to do those tasks, and I can go out more, see more customers, and hopefully.
It's amazing to think of you doing all of those, the different roles that would be needed in that business around fulfillment and ordering and packaging and sending out, all of that sort of stuff. So the first role, that makes total sense then. So to then demonstrate the growth, how many people are you now at in the organisation, and what was the most recent role you recruited for?
So we're up to 22 now, and the last person that joined us was a financial controller. Okay. That's really interesting, actually, Pete, because I think we were a bit slow, a bit late, really. We should have recruited for that role a bit sooner. Okay. Our business has become a little more complex as we manufacture, and due to Brexit, we became VAT registered in Holland as well as the UK. So there's more reporting functions back to governments. Okay. So I think we probably should have done it a bit sooner, but what a difference she's making. I think it just goes to show you get the right people in the right roles, and they can really add value to a business. And we're certainly seeing that now in our finance department.
Sure. So, and from an operational perspective, you would have always, I suppose, in the early days, you would have done finance yourself. You did warehousing, and you recruited warehousing people. Now, as the business has evolved, and we'll talk about the 3D printing, I imagine you've had to create a manufacturing department. So, what sort of roles are you now recruiting and employing in comparison to when you started? Hi, my name's Pete, and I want to thank you for tuning into today's podcast. I'm a coach, speaker, and author. And if you want to take your personal development that bit further, did you know that I offer a mastermind program as well as one-to-one coaching? If you're interested, please do reach out on peterushmer.com.
Yeah, what's interesting about having a business based here is that in some ways you win and you lose, in that, Peterborough, I guess, has a reputation around warehousing jobs, little bits of manufacturing, little pockets, not necessarily strong, say, for IT or for tech firms, right? And that kind of worked to our advantage a little bit as we moved into manufacturing. So we actually got 3 people from Perkins, where they'd made a whole raft of redundancies. Amazing. And all of a sudden, just again, sometimes you ride your luck, but as we're looking to move into manufacturing, all these people become available on the market. So we got a production manager and 2 production operatives from Perkins. So they all know each other. So you've effectively brought in a team.
Yeah, amazing.
They all get on. They've got respect for each other. So that's been really helpful. But we've also leaned heavily on our design manager James, who came from Dyson, because as you might imagine, as he's grown and developed products for that global brand, he's had to learn and become immersed in the manufacturing processes, how you bring products to market, at what speed, and we very much learn from that too. So it's very much a team effort, but yeah, the production's been interesting.
I imagine. Okay, so the decision to go to 3D printing was driven by a number of factors.
Yeah.
Are you able to just outline sort of what that because that's innovation, sustainability and innovation. So what drove that? Because that isn't continuous. For me, that's not continuous improvement. That's like, this is like a bit of a sit up in the bath moment and go, let's do this.
I mean, we pretty much, tipped tipped the basket upside down and threw everything out. But so it's interesting because getting on for 3 years ago, we became a certified B Corporation. So for anybody who hasn't heard of B Corps, essentially they're businesses that want to be a force for good. And the B Corp banner allows a community of businesses that care for the environment, local community, employees, clients, and governance. They're the 5 kind of pillars of B Corps. And as part of our accreditation process, we had to look at the environmental aspect. And I remember talking to the assessor about a refit program we'd done for Cotswold Outdoor, where we could demonstrate 60% energy savings, which equated to 60% carbon reduction, right? And that was achieved by a technology shift. So fluorescent lighting, metal halide lighting, both of which are now banned. Okay. Moving to LED technology. Right. Now, it won't surprise anybody to know that had nothing to do with us. Right. It's a technology shift. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I go through this process and I speak to the assessor and explain that we've achieved these savings, and they go, great, fantastic, tick. But what occurred to me was that actually it had nothing to do with us. So first of all, is that good enough to achieve that accreditation? But secondly, from a positive point of view, it made me think, what could we do on the bit that's left? And the bit that's left is the materials, the manufacture, and the location of manufacture. So that's when I started to do some research. I reached out to James, and he agreed to start working on a product and seeing if we could use these biopolymers that are derived from sugarcane and cornstarch. And can we use them to make professional light fittings? Because the big issue is heat dissipation. It's the thermal properties. Yeah. So to cut a very long story short, 10 months later, and a few quid, James came back and went, yeah, we can do it.
Amazing.
So we launched one product, just one. We launched it over in Germany at a trade show called Euroshop, which is this vast exhibition where each hall has a different discipline. You have a hall for chiller cabinets for supermarkets, a hall for flooring, a hall for lighting, a hall for mannequins, right? Oh, okay. It's vast. And we launched there, and the response was incredible because retailers want stories to tell their customers, right? So we came away from Euroshop and said, okay, we've got a choice. We can either leave the one product as a little niche, still sell the imported products as every other lighting company would do. And I said, no, we go all in. But we now need to make sure that every product we launch is available at the same price or less than the aluminium equivalent. Okay. And that way we get the compelling story around sustainability, but it doesn't cost the client anything to make the switch. Of course. And that's really been the thing that's driven that change.
Sure. Amazing. And so that journey started 3 years ago.
Yeah.
The first question is, how did you come across? So James has been pivotal in supporting that. So how did you come across James?
I'd love to tell you it was quite sophisticated and everything else, but it's Google.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
And look, sometimes I think it's important to understand that, for sure, the old adage is about making your own luck, but sometimes you just, maybe you're in the right place at the right time. And we came across each other simply through that.
I just think of the old Jim Collins quote on Good to Great of right people on the bus on the right seat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Fantastic. Okay, so, and you started to essentially toy with this, but it's become a major part of the business. So what percentage of all your lighting solutions are now homemade, so to speak, or
just over 60.
Manufactured. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really fast journey. We have a goal that will be to get to 80% by 2028. And then we'll review that and see how we go forward from there. There are one or two products that simply aren't viable to 3D print, either due to their size or due to their very, very low commoditized price in the market. So one example would be emergency lighting, right? Yeah. So we will probably not get to 100.
Yeah, okay.
But we want to get as close to that as we can. So we're at 60. We're aiming for 80 within 3 years.
Amazing. And what has that journey, What's the sort of key takeaway from you from that journey? Because it must have been quite a learning curve, learning around that. So what would be the sort of key takeaway you're taking from that?
I think the most important element to it is building the story.
Okay.
And I think a testament to that is the fact that, in reality, when these products are installed, they do the same thing as those products that are made in the Far East. You turn them on, they light a retail space. Mm-hmm. Okay. But what's critical about them is understanding that actually, what are they made from? Where are they made? Mm-hmm. But more importantly, what happens to them at end of life? Mm-hmm. I mean, it was very much that drove us towards launching a buyback scheme, which is completely unique in our industry, where we'll take them back from our clients for a small credit, but we can then repurpose the products here in Peterborough. So something like 86% of each luminaire can be remade into another one. Right? Okay. Now, those stories are compelling because retailers want to be responsible and they want to demonstrate that to their consumers. Mm-hmm. So I think that the big takeaway for me is that even if something is technically innovative or makes good financial sense, it's building the story that takes people on a journey from why we did it, what we're doing, and what the benefits are at the other end. That's the critical part. Yeah, sure. Because if we put our product in front of a client and one of the old ones, you're just looking at two lines.
Yeah, sure. And does that mean that it's been a fairly straightforward journey from a customer perspective and converting them from the old product to a newer product? Has that been straightforward, or have you faced challenges with that?
No, I mean, I would say that, like I say, our clients have been incredibly welcoming for this, and so that conversion rate has been fairly straightforward. And look, I make no bones about it. I think what these products allow us to do is to differentiate our company, sure. Right? I mean, we can go and talk to brands and take them on this journey. And frankly, our competitors walk in with the same product and often not a particularly great service around it either. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of companies and founders, chief execs, whatever your role is in your company, leaders. Sure. Of innovating. And that innovation has to happen. It has to happen at pace. And, again, that old saying, if you're going to break it fast. Yeah, right. Sure. So for sure, that has to keep going because that's what builds the stories. Sure,
absolutely. And I have an interesting question. I've not asked you this. Have any of your competitors tried to do a copycat yet?
Yeah, I mean, we're not the first to 3D print lights. It was actually, I guess people would know them as Philips. Yeah. They're now called Signify. Sure. But Signify are certainly the kind of global leader in 3D printing light fittings. But Signify still use materials that are often derived from fossil fuels. So environmentally, there's no significant advantage. Plus, they're very hard to be broken down and recycled because they're composites. They're a blend. The difference the different path we've taken is to use biomaterials that will either compost or can be repurposed and put back into production. So it's a much more circular offer. Okay. So now, listen, whilst I don't think the Signify products are particularly innovative, I'm very pleased that Signify are doing this. Yeah. Because they're a global brand. Yeah. And when we go and talk to people and say we 3D print lights, they don't go, what? Yeah. Because they've heard that Signify, it's almost become fairly common as a production method. It's the materials that are different. Sure.
And that gives then credence to the process. Absolutely. And what that you're following. Yeah. Okay, so one of the common themes that I've picked up with your leadership of Shoplight is around being a force for good. So you touched on B Corp, and I'm acutely aware of the blue line that you've done as well for retail.
Correct.
So are you able to just sort of explain a little bit more about sort of what that is for you? Because it is more than just profits, right? Yeah. Are you able to just sort of explain that and just some of the activity that you're doing around that for
sure. I mean, I think if we look at there's a campaign we did called Buy Blue. And it's a partnership with the Retail Trust now. They're a charity that are nearly 200 years old, and they will help anybody in financial hardship or with mental health issues that has a history of working in retail. And in fact, for those worst affected, the Retail Trust own 200 properties around the country. So they will actually house people who are most significantly affected by those issues. So they're a wonderful charity, and they do a lot for retail workers. And what struck me was the fact that, without these people walking in at 8 o'clock every morning, often putting up with horrendous abuse, shoplifting that gets widely ignored by the police, putting themselves in danger very often. Without them, there's no brand, there's no product, and there's no Shoplight. So we were very keen to try and do something that would at least contribute towards the Retail Trust and their work. So we introduced a campaign called Buy Blue, and essentially for every product that has the Retail Trust logo embedded in it, which, by the way, is one of the advantages of 3D printing, is that you can modify the products on the hoof. Yeah. Once you buy the product with that on, then 2% of the revenue goes to the Retail Trust. So it's a good campaign. I think, brands can also buy into that because they can appreciate that we're doing something to help their workers, perhaps further down the line later in life.
Sure.
In terms of where that purpose comes from, I think, again, probably a bit of a journey, but as a company, we've always believed that we should look outwards. We should do more than look after shareholders, and should try our very best to not only create great jobs, to help those who want it progress through their careers. So sure, that's an internal measure, but also what can we do for our local community, and how do we support charities and that kind of stuff. And so B Corp 3 years ago was a good landing place for us, because it gave us a kind of banner to align our values with.
Sure.
But it's not without its critics, and probably fairly so, in the sense that you do have global brands that sit as part of B Corp, that often there are questionable products or actions that really don't align with the values of being a B corporation.
Sure.
So, I don't wish to call anybody out particularly, but if you look at Nespresso, which is a global coffee brand that produces every single product in an aluminium foil capsule, the capsule is composite aluminium. There's not a single local authority in this country that can recycle that, not one. So whilst Nespresso say you can return them to us, most people don't. They throw them in the bin. And they go to landfill. Yeah. Now, I find it fairly questionable that a business where that is literally their product, it's not a side issue, it's core to their business, have become a B Corp. So, I suppose what we should conclude is that B Corp perhaps gives you a Northern Star. Yeah. It allows you to align under a set of values that as a business you can progress. But it's not the be-all and end-all, and actually good companies that want to do better can do that anyway. Yeah, they don't really need the accreditation of a logo to be able to achieve their goals.
Sometimes it takes to try these things to then understand them more, doesn't it? One of the questions I had for you is, we were talking a bit about we almost touched on your motivation as a leader there around the purpose of what you're doing. Now, one of the things that I recognise is that we need, as leaders, we need two things, and we need to instill those in our teams as well. And one of them is motivation and energy, and the other one's discipline. And the two things kind of go hand in hand to an extent, because you need both, right? The motivation gives us the energy to a Northern Star, for example, which we're heading towards, and the discipline makes us carry on doing that even when it gets tough, right? Yeah. So when it comes to motivation, what do you think it is that motivates you? And when we talk about motivation, we often, we tend to often go for the financial benefits, but actually people are often motivated by freedom, autonomy, purpose, having meaning in their work, being able to sort of be in control and make decisions. What do you think it is that sort of propels you forward?
I think all those things on a day-to-day basis. I think one of the things that is underrated being a company owner is time and freedom. Sure. I think often people who work for others think of the financial benefits of owning a company. Well, actually, for me, it's the time, the freedom, and the autonomy that it gives you. The truth is, though, in terms of what motivates me, is a fear of failure.
Okay.
And I'm not suggesting that's healthy, by the way.
I could probably challenge you that it probably isn't, to be fair. Maybe that's a chat for another day.
Yeah, maybe. But that's the truth, right? Okay. The truth is, and I don't know where it comes from. I don't know how, but, to this very day, I always wake up thinking that if I don't do my best today, it could all be over tomorrow. Okay. And actually, as I get older, it's not so much about that for me. It's more about that for the people that rely on me and the company for their mortgages and their holidays and their families. So, I think it's a fear of failure. Okay. It's also a drive to succeed. And maybe those two things overlap at some point. Yeah. And that perhaps something negative turns into something positive as well. Sure. I would put them down to that really, but on a more practical level, I do want to make a difference. I do want our company to make a difference, and I don't want to be a business that contributes to environmental damage, or at least limits the environmental damage that it creates. In the same way that I want our company to be able to say, well, we help people along the way.
Sure. And as well as that motivation, discipline obviously is vital as well. So what are the, if you were to pick a couple of the disciplines that you sort of live by or try and instill in the team, what disciplines are important to you to maintain?
I think the most critical one, I suppose you'd call it consistency, but that can take many forms. It can be around decision-making processes. It can be around having a set of rules, right, for people or the business. But I think also in terms of your drive and your ambition and determination, it's about saying, what do we want to stand for as a business? Look, I think we've seen a fairly large shift in the last few months, particularly in America, around ESG, and companies seem to have bailed out of it as quickly as they can. Right, because they now believe there's a political landscape for them to do so without criticism. But I think as a company, we didn't go into B Corp because we thought it was fashionable, in much the same way as the commitments we make to local community shouldn't end. No, just because the politics change. Sure. So I think consistency is really important. You should have values, but I don't want to give the wrong impression here, Pete. We're also a high-performing business. We have a high-performing culture. We expect collective responsibility from people. Sure. They help each other. We achieve our goals first. Yeah. Because without that, nothing else can happen either.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I admire most about obviously knowing you on a day-to-day basis as well is that there's that discipline of, every day get up, in your work clothes, straight off to the office, and just every day the discipline is there. And there was something you mentioned the other day that there was that impressed me, and then something else you mentioned around dialing the team in, because one of the things is the challenges are when you get to a team of 20 plus like you've got, is the dilution of essentially that culture that you drive. So then having to try and keep that alive, and that you're really focusing them at the moment. Keep using focusing as I don't know if that's a bit of a pun with the lighting, so apologies for that. But you're getting the team to focus on, if it isn't having an impact on the customer, then that's the key focus. That you ought to sort of share that a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. That's
because we can get distracted, can't
we?
Companies get distracted by losing focus on what they're doing.
Yeah, that's the lens, if you like, that we should look through. Is that no matter what we do, does it have an impact on our customers or our products? Right? Because they both align to the same thing in the end, and that's very much the lens that we look through. So if the answer's no, then we shouldn't really do it. Now, of course, it's not as necessarily as linear as that, and it gets a little bit more abstract and a bit more grey, I suppose, as you start to broaden that out and look at different disciplines such as marketing or sales or whatever. But again, you mentioned it earlier, the right people on the right bus in the right seats, the Jim Collins analogy. But I also understand, and particularly again after 10 years of doing this, that not everybody wants to share in the drive and the ambition of the business. There are some people who prefer to turn up for work, put in a good shift, do their job, and go home again. Yeah. And that's okay too. Sure. So I think for us, it's about saying, where are the leaders in the business? Where are the people who share the drive, the ambition, the values, and focusing around them and bringing everybody else with us, but not necessarily expecting everybody to contribute the same. Yeah, of course. And that then can manifest itself through rewards and lots of other things.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay, cool. So one of the things that I do for guests is I have 3 common questions that I ask towards the end of the session. And the first one of that is, how do you develop yourself? What do you do to develop yourself as a leader?
So I've certainly done a lot of reading. I mean, I think, and not everything I've read you kind of adapt and adopt into your daily lives. But I do think that, frankly, not enough people look to develop themselves in today's world. And perhaps there's an expectation that others will do it for you, which I've never really believed in. I'm not particularly well educated. In fact, that's an overstatement. But most recently, I have undertaken or started an MBA with University of Warwick, which I'm very proud to be part of. And it's a real challenge. I mean, I'm learning all the time. I'm understanding the kind of academia and the theory behind things that actually I've probably done for years but never known why. Yeah. And again, it's a wonderful thing to be able to take that learning and go, I get it. I understand why we do that and why that happens, and actually why haven't we done that? So and it, it's an absolute revelation that you can, at any time in life, you can expose yourselves to these learnings and these incredible people, and look to develop yourself, whether it's through work, personal life, business, whatever it might be.
Sure. What an opportunity doing your MBA.
Incredible. Yeah. I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah. Really cool. And I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes.
Yeah.
Having not long started it. So yeah, it sounds exciting though. Yeah. I must say I may be a tad jealous, but it's a great way to develop yourself. So whilst you were talking about books, is there one that sort of stands out for you that's had a big impact? Because reading's important.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading one at the moment by Will Storr, which is about storytelling, and it's something I've often believed in. But it's again fantastic to hear the reasoning and the rationale behind why it's so important. And actually, if you think about it, everything we do is telling stories. Sure. Whether it's selling a product, selling a service, even in our personal lives, we're constantly telling stories, right? Yeah. And so the art and the ability to be able to do that effectively should never really be underestimated. And the one thing I will say about my early days in the MBA is that actually there's not enough focus on that. Yeah. Okay. So that can often be the problem with academia, is that actually those kind of less measurable things can often get missed in the mix. So that's been a fantastic read. For sure, the Jim Collins books are wonderful. I love the data and the analytics that go into those, rather than it be about one person's opinion. It's all about the research and the results. For sure. But I any kind of businessy book, I'm a sucker for.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and then off the back of that question, the second question is 3 tips for other people listening for success, or 3 things that you have done that have contributed to success.
Yeah, so I would certainly say the number one is understand what it is you do, whether it be your trade, your business, your craft, whatever it is. Understand it and be an absolute expert in it, because I think the only way, not only to sell that to customers, but also to build a team, is to have that expert knowledge, right? The expert power, if you like. Mm-hmm. You're the person that people rely on to come to with the answers in difficult situations. Sure. And that cannot be underestimated in terms of how important that is. So I think that would be the first one. Okay. Like I said, maybe a bit more of a traditional view, but really, really important. The second one I would say is understanding the power of a brand, because, and I know this from mistakes, I'm not suggesting that I'm an expert in it, but I think having been through this decade-long journey where, you know, you start with a logo, you evolve it, you don't really understand brand books and language and that kind of consistent approach. Mm-hmm. But as the company has grown, you've been exposed to real experts in this field. It's so important. It's what allows companies to go from small to medium and potentially medium to large. Sure. It's not the product, it's not necessarily the people. Mm-hmm. It's having people buy into a brand that feels bigger sometimes than it is. Yep, sure. So I think sometimes that gets underestimated, and you see that a lot in micro businesses. You see it a lot in trade businesses where, you know, slapping a name on the side of a van it really isn't building a brand, right? No. So so brand building, expert power. And then the last thing I would say is passion. And I appreciate that is tacit. It's not necessarily quantifiable, but people know it when they see it, right? And again, if you're the person that people turn to because they may not actually understand what it is you do, but they sense the passion you have for it. Oh, yeah. That's the critical part. Yeah. So it's trying to do something with passion, with pride. That's where motivation comes from, I think, in an organisation. So is that
drives energy?
Reasonable three?
Yeah, expert, drive and passion, and
power of a brand.
Power of a brand. Yeah, love that. Yeah, fantastic. Well done for coming up those off the hoof. I hadn't prepped you either, so I'm impressed. Well done. That's really cool. Really cool. And the third and final question is, what is the advice that you'd give your younger self? Not that you're old, obviously, but a younger, less experienced version of yourself, based on what you know now. I'm
sure 50 is the new 40.
Yeah,
something like that. Anyway,
of course it is.
What advice would I give myself? I think firstly I'd say back yourself. Sure. I wish I'd founded a business earlier. Okay. Whether I had the knowledge to, maybe that's a different question. But I certainly wish that I'd had more confidence to do it, because I think I had the passion, even if I didn't have the knowledge. So I think back yourself is definitely one piece of advice. But I think the other piece of advice I would give myself, a younger version of myself, is to trust others. And one of the real significant hurdles for founder-led businesses is taking that step from doing everything yourself to trusting others to do it for you. Sure. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that I cracked it. All right, there's still lots of things I get involved in that I probably shouldn't. But it's a journey, and so yeah, for sure. There comes a point where you have to say, maybe I'm not the best person to do this because I don't have the skill set, or actually purely for efficiency reasons, I need to trust somebody else to lead that part of the business. Sure. That can be a real challenge, but it's good advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably one of the age-old and most challenging things is knowing when to delegate and when the right time is and who the right people are. That's an age-old challenge.
Pete, I genuinely believe that it would be a terrible world if it was full of founders.
Yeah.
Right? Because what would happen is there'd be 10 million really great ideas, none of which would actually happen. Right? Or very few that would happen. So, the world needs people that want to be MDs, FDs, directors, all the way down to production workers or or lighting designers or whatever, right? So it's about harnessing the skill set that people have and that they're passionate about, and trusting them to do the job with guidance. And I think that's the bit that's been a real challenge for me, is being able to say, it's not mine anymore. Let somebody else do it.
100%. And I find that really interesting, because it's just made me think about, and just I suppose as a closing thought, really, is there is a level of toxicity there around, from a founder perspective, around delegating. So one of the things that I coach a lot of leaders on is about that ability to be able to delegate. But then also from a societal perspective, we have like this rose-tinted view of particularly founders and CEOs being self-made. And actually there's a toxicity in that, because in reality, I don't know of anyone who's been successful that's totally self-made, because there's been a load of people that support that along the way. The network's really important, right? I'm not self-made, right? I'm a result of all of the people and the support and the interactions I've had along the way.
Yeah, you are. But that said, you're also a person that has been prepared to expose yourself to that, okay, and learn from it and take the best bits, hopefully, and build something around that. And I think, we talked earlier about business purpose, and I think sometimes that can present itself as a certain fluffiness, a certain virtuous purpose, and I think often that can attract people that think that you're going to do everything for them, right? And I think that where we need to get to as a society is to say, it's okay to be ambitious. It's okay to have drive. It's okay to lean on others to say, this is where I want to get to. How can you help me get there? What's not okay is to sit back and let everybody else do it for you. I agree with that. And I think we're at a tipping point, society-wise, as to whether actually we still want people who are prepared to put in the hard graft. And listen, in certain... We started this conversation around football, right? And there's no other way to become a professional footballer than hard graft, right? And developing talent. But that said, in perhaps more normal walks of life, I think we're close to the edge where people are saying, actually, I want you to do it for me. Well, no, in my world, that's not how that works. You've still got to show the drive, the ambition, the purpose. And then opportunities happen. And that's really what I'm getting to is, for sure, you're a product of what's around you. You could equally have shut yourself off to all of it. Of course. All right. That was on you. That was on me. And that's the bit that I hope we never lose. Yeah, it's a great point. I got asked the other day what my pet peeve was. And I in absence of a better answer, I'm sure there may be others, but what sprung to mind was entitlement. Yeah. I agree. I agree. There's absolutely nothing more frustrating than entitlement. You shall. And I think my worry is, I suppose, and it sounds like you've got a similar concern, and that is that risk needs to be rewarded. Yeah. It's the only reason anyone takes risk, right? Absolutely. Is that there's an opportunity for reward. Yeah. And as a society, we need to ensure. I think the issue we have is that too much reward is given to lack of risk, which makes people lazy. Yeah, I agree. And entitled. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we should be optimistic. My three of my kids are older than yours, and I see three individuals who understand the rules of the game. Right, they're prepared to graft, whether it be through their education as they move into work. They're prepared to be ambitious. My 19-year-old son is currently looking at building a business at the same time as finishing his university education. Sure. And I've looked at the hard work and effort he's put into planning that business, and I'm nothing but admiration, because he's not just gone, I've watched Dragon's Den, it looks amazing, or The Apprentice, what a great life it would be to be an entrepreneur. I'll be an entrepreneur. Yeah, sure. He's actually putting in the hard yards to understand what this business should look like and how it's going to succeed. So there is great optimism. I have great hope that the things that you demonstrate every day, and hopefully I might do occasionally, isn't lost. It's out there. What we've got to make sure is, you're right, is that it's rewarded, and that we don't tell everybody that they can have this for nothing. Oh, of course. Yeah.
And hopefully there's enough people out there who are willing to get rewarded for doing the work that's needed.
Absolutely, Pete. And look, let's not pretend. And I think this gets lost a little bit in modern business talk, is that successful businesses need sacrifice. They don't happen on their own. They need people. Maybe it's one, maybe it's a group. Yeah. They need people that are prepared to sacrifice. That could be time. It could be for a period of their lives, relationships, right? It could be interests outside of it. But, we shouldn't be under any illusion. There's no way that the world has the Apples, the Ubers of this world without personal sacrifice. Yeah, so let's be honest. Let's talk about that. Let's not pretend to another generation that you can go to college and study entrepreneurism and you'll be an entrepreneur. No, you need to make some sacrifices if you want it to be something worth having.
Absolutely. It's a fair point. Anything worth having is worth sacrifices.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we sacrifice our insanity for it.
Yeah, but what a ride.
Very true. Very true. Amazing. That might have to be part of the podcast moving forward. What sacrifices have you made in building your business?
It's not a bad one.
There's a question, right? Because that's telling the truth.
Yeah.
We're starting to move towards truth then about sacrifice.
Totally, Pete. I think anything else is a denial of the facts, right? Yeah. And that level of sacrifice is down to the individual. There are great tradespeople I admire who are effectively self-employed, don't get paid holidays, don't get paid sick leave, right? All the things that many of us learn to enjoy working for others. And that's their level of risk and sacrifice. That's all they want. They know that if they have a day off sick, they're not getting paid, right? That is a sacrifice. Yeah. It doesn't mean they're going to be the next Bill Gates, but they're making a sacrifice of their business. So it can be low level there, or it can be, at a different end where perhaps, founders are working 15, 16 hours a day, sleeping on the floor of their office or whatever, urban myth gets sown. But you take my point, right? And that might lead to a global business that could be sold for billions of pounds later. So I think we have to be honest. There is no golden ticket here. It needs hard work, graft, and sacrifice.
Yeah, sacrifices. I think that might be a fourth question moving forward. Mark, thanks for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast, and I look forward to seeing you on a future one. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on today's It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. We really hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. I'm absolutely delighted that you took the time to listen, and I really hope that you'll subscribe to ensure that you receive future episodes too. If you want to find out any more, please do search It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast, and you'll find it on your favourite podcast app. Thank you.